Lights, camera, action, and the driver heard us as well. Did you hear the rumble of the thing? The lights.
The UV lights, man. It's like a rave in here now, man.
So I'm here, Charley London, with Paul Edinburgh, here in grey Edinburgh.
Sunny Leith.
Sunny Leith. Sunshine is trying to get onto Leith today, and just about making it. We are on the number 22. It is the 22nd of August, and we're going to be giving you a bus tour, very, very special bus tour through Edinburgh, not London. And Paul and me are going to talk about what we see. What can you see there, Paul?
Well, there was the Royal Yacht Britannia was there, very briefly.
Let's just have a look at these seat covers. They are parts of Calton Hill, parts of the Monument, the Scott Monument, and all sorts. It's kind of representing Edinburgh.
This is called Commercial Street. We're on. Leith is the main port for Edinburgh, and it was the main port for Scotland as well. So obviously this is where the commerce, and there's actually a customs house as well along here. We'll see a beautiful Georgian building coming up on the left-hand side actually. On the right-hand side coming up, you'll see what looks like a church. Just here, see the spires of the church?
Oh yeah.
It's not a church anymore, it's accommodation, but it was a church. But right there, where that is, that was where Oliver Cromwell occupied Leith. Oliver Cromwell built a big fort round here called the Citadel in the 1650s, and they occupied Scotland for quite a long time. So right there, you'd have seen Oliver Cromwell. He only killed a few thousand Scots, he didn't do too much damage to us, really. Saying a few thousand on a death march. 1600 to the colonies.
We're going to be coming into the prettiest part of Leith, I think now, which is the shore. Just straight ahead of us. I always think it looks a little bit like Bavarian or something here. If you see a postcard of this or a picture of this, it always looks very, very pretty.
That's a custom house, Georgian.
Custom house, Georgian.
It's getting turned into a Leith museum, actually.
Oh,
it's got a lot of funding.
This King's Walk's one of the oldest pubs, I think. Yeah. 1434. That pub, very, very old, very low ceilings, very traditional. Off we go along the water. Such a peaceful, beautiful part of Leith, but very cobbled, as you can feel by the bumpiness of this ride.
But if you see on the left-hand side here, this building here, this used to be the unemployment office, and this is where the pop band, the Proclaimers, used to sign on. You know the Proclaimers? I would walk 500 miles,
and I would walk 500 more.
Well, they used to sign on the door there. And they filmed their first single. In fact, if you want to go to YouTube and put on Letter from America by the Proclaimers, you'll see what Leith looked like in 1987, because they filmed their first video just across the road, and they needed extras to appear in the video, so they went to the Dole office, and they got 30 extras from the Dole in there to appear in the video for Letter from America, including one of my friends, including Dog Shit Park over there. Dog Poo Park.
Dog Poo Park. Or what would we say? Dog Jobby Park.
Jobby, yeah.
Because in a Scottish dialect, jobby means poo.
We're actually just coming into Junction Street now as well. Great Junction Street. I used to live here, and it's one of the noisiest streets in Edinburgh. And this building here, just in front, is a train spotting building.
Oh yeah.
This is why it's called train spotting. This used to be the train station for Leith Central Station. Leith is suffering from gentrification just now, but it's also got a lot of poverty and drug problems as well.
Coming up Leith Walk now, and you can see that this tram has been built for, years now. Here on the right, there's a tram extension coming up from, so we're going into the city, and this is all the tram extension. So Leith Walk is a lovely stretch where you can get all sorts of different charity shops and different cafes and so on. But the tram extension is forming a big part of our view today.
This is, I've probably walked up and down this street thousands upon thousands of times, and it doesn't matter what time of day or night you come up this street, there will always be somebody on it. I've never walked on this street, I've not met at least one person, no matter the time. But we're just coming up to here. Leith used to be a separate borough from Edinburgh. Up until 1920, Leith and Edinburgh were completely separate, and they both had separate tram systems, right? Leith had the more modern tram system, electric tram system, sorry, and the Edinburgh trams were a pulley system, powered by steam engines and pulled along with big cables. And the border of Leith and Edinburgh, we're just coming up to it up here, where that church is on the right-hand side. That's the boundary between Edinburgh and Leith. And if you were coming down from Edinburgh to Leith, you had to get off the tram up there and change onto the Leith tram, because they were two completely separate systems. And it was actually called the Pilrig Muddle, because the trams had to turn around, the Edinburgh trams had to turn around to go back into Edinburgh, and it was called the Pilrig Muddle. It was a bit of a nightmare.
Here we have a lovely piece of street art featuring the unicorn, which you may or may not know is Scotland's national animal. I saw the guy painting this when I was walking down. He's a Canadian artist. I forget his name, but he moved to Leith and he's a musician and he fell in love with Leith. And he did this as a dedication to the people of Leith with the love, dignity, kindness and respect. All things we should aspire to here in Leith, with the lovely unicorn in the middle to represent Scotland.
This area here, it's the most densely populated area in the UK outside of London, but it's also, this area here is the most EU nationals in the whole of Scotland are in this area. And so that makes me very proud, because that means Leith's a very welcoming place, you know. But Leith's always welcomed people, obviously we're a main port, so we've always had visitors from far afield over the centuries, so we're quite welcoming.
And what do you call someone from Leith?
We call ourselves Leithers. Leithers. Edinburgh is the most English city out of England. There's quite a lot of English living here because of financial district.
Yeah, and it's the most. It's when you say that you live in Edinburgh, everyone kind of says, "Oh, it's the most English of the English place in Scotland." I'm sure. You can see there's a new part of the skyline now. I'm going to zoom in. Right, can you see that? It's the Golden Jobby, which is a nickname for the St James's new shopping centre. Can you see it's sort of like a bronze twirl? That's a new addition to the skyline. Millions of pounds have been spent building that up. It's had a bad press, but I think it's quite beautiful. And it's cast in bronze, and it's just there, and it's a big shopping complex, including all the major shops and stuff, right in the middle of the new town here, which is where we are. If you were to go left here at the top, you would continue going. You would get up to Calton Hill, which is a big observatory. It's like the Acropolis, Edinburgh's Acropolis, where you can see the whole of Edinburgh from a really lovely height and see sort of everything together, which is one of my favourite places, Calton Hill. Well, we're coming up Leith Street, up towards another train spotting spot, aren't we, on the left in a moment.
If you come to Edinburgh, by the way, Edinburgh's got the best public transport outside of London. The buses are quite unique here. They're the largest municipal-owned buses in the UK. They're owned by the local council. Edinburgh Council owns 91% of this bus, and the other local councils in the surrounding areas own the rest. So they're all owned by the council, and they're actually they've got like about 790 buses, over 50 bus routes. They've got a tram system. If you come to Edinburgh Airport, don't get a private cab or a shuttle, get the tram or the bus. There's actually an airport bus that brings you all the way into Leith as well, the number 200, and it's like £10 return.
Have a look at this clock here and check the time. It says about 8 minutes to 8. That clock is actually set 3 minutes fast, so that people running for their train station at the below Waverley train station aren't late for their train. How useful is that? That's the beautiful Balmoral Hotel, a statement hotel right here in the centre of Edinburgh, and it's on the 5th floor, the top floor there, where J.K. Rowling finished her last book in the series of Harry Potter. Nice.
But you'll see this monument coming up on the, you can just see the Gothic, see that, the Gothic rocket they call that, and that's the second, it used to be the largest monument, but it's now the second largest monument to a writer anywhere in the world.
It's dedicated to Walter Scott,
yes, well
and he wrote the Waverley novels. Just have a look at the train station name. This Edinburgh Waverley Central train station is the only train station named after a novel, after Scott's novel, as we see his memorial there. And just a little thing to talk about in terms of Edinburgh in general. The new town, we've just been partly through it. Lots of Georgian architecture. It was built as a kind of signature project by James Craig to show that Edinburgh was this very organised, very posh place. But the old town is something else. The old town is a city built on a city. It's all this different architectural style. It's a medieval city, and that's the part that you have the Royal Mile in. And you can really see the way it is unorganised, kind of the planning of it with buildings built onto buildings on different levels. If you look over there to the left, I think it looks pretty amazing actually from this side. We've got Princes Street Gardens, which intersects the new town where we are and the old town over there.
Can you see this building here? That's the headquarters of the Bank of Scotland.
Oh yeah.
It used to be the headquarters of HBOS, Halifax Bank of Scotland, and I used to work there. And if you see at the top, there's flags at the top of the building. One of my jobs was to change all the flags.
So Edinburgh Castle, probably one of the most famous attractions of the castle, the Walter Scott Monument as we pass it. What's this building here on the left with the columns?
We've got a couple of, this is very neoclassical Greek architecture. Edinburgh's called the Athens of the North.
Oh, that's right. The Athens of the North. And why do they call it the Athens of the North, Paul?
There's a couple of reasons. When the rich people moved out into the new town, that led to a period called the Scottish Enlightenment period, when Edinburgh invented the modern world, including the television, the telephone, penicillin and so on. And obviously the Greeks invented the ancient world. Edinburgh was actually they were going to base the buildings on Rome initially, There's some Romanesque type buildings in Edinburgh. But then an artist done an exhibition. He went to Athens and painted certain scenes from Athens and had an exhibition in Edinburgh, and they decided to switch from Roman to Athens as well. So it's a couple of reasons. And then obviously when we copied the monuments, we've copied the Parthenon and so on, the neoclassical Greek architecture. There's Queen Victoria.
Queen Victoria in the top there.
We've only got
Lovely.
3 statues of ladies and 2 of them are of her, Queen Victoria.
So you've got one down in Leith and one here. So you're going to get
there's
some
the
great
castle.
views of the castle right now.
We're going to go down in a wee minute so we can get a better view of the castle, so don't panic. We couldn't bring you to Edinburgh and not show you a good view of the castle. This is Princess Street we're on just now, and that's named after actually King George's sons. It's not princess, it's princes. And then we also have Hanover Street, George Street, which is 25 foot wide, named after King George.
Look at that on the craggy there. Is that an extinct volcano that it's built on there?
Edinburgh's built on 7 hills, just like Sheffield and Rome. And yeah, Edinburgh, that's sitting on a volcanic plug. They had actually on a volcano tour a couple of weeks ago. They did have, there's 2 really high points in Edinburgh, and they had forts on top of each of them. But at some point, they obviously decided to make the castle the permanent base.
Here we are in Edinburgh. There's the bus right behind us. But here we are on Princess Street. We survived it. We hope you like the 22, but it's not over yet. We're going to go walking into Princess Street Gardens, the Old Norlock, and Paul's going to tell us a little bit more. If you've enjoyed this tour, buy me a coffee, where you can make a donation. You can buy a bus ticket, or you can buy a donation to this project. Any donations on that are gratefully received. Do support me and Paul on our mission if you've enjoyed the tour today. Here we're coming into the lovely greenery of Princess Street Gardens. Let me just show you the sign here. Let's have a little look at this statue, because this is where you think this fountain, you think this is the best selfie spot, do you?
I think it is.
I think it is, because we've got the craggy extinct volcano there, we've got the parts of the castle, and we've got this wonderful Victorian water feature, which has a London connection, I must add. It was made for the Great Exhibition, which was held in Kensington, outside the Royal Albert Hall, you may know. And actually, it was made in France, and then it was made for the Great Exhibition, and it was exhibited in the Great Exhibition, and then it was gifted to Scotland. So it has a French and a London and a Scottish connection. And just look at that lovely teal, that Victorian teal, as we get a little bit closer.
You might be able to hear some music in the background. There's actually a multi-storey car park that's getting used as a festival venue.
Oh yeah.
They're using a multi-storey car park as a festival venue because it's sort of semi-outside.
Oh
You know what
right,
I
we
mean?
should go and check it out.
So that's where all the noise is coming from if you hear it. There are some free events actually going on in Edinburgh. They've got a free, this is in the west end of Edinburgh. At the east end of Edinburgh, they've got St Andrew's Square, named after Scotland's patron saint, and they've actually got an open-air cinema that's free.
St Cuthbert's, is it?
Yeah, this is the oldest Christian site in Edinburgh. There's been a church here since probably around the 7th century, but possibly before that. St Cuthbert used to come to Edinburgh underneath Edinburgh Castle and built a shrine. It's been a Celtic Christian church, it's been a Catholic, Roman Catholic church, but it's now a Church of Scotland Presbyterian church. But it's called the Mother Church.
The Mother Church?
The Mother Church. It's got beautiful bells. I actually used to work in it. Well, I didn't work there for very long because I couldn't.
Here we go, they moved him, he wasn't always here.
Yeah, he's been moved. This is Bum the dog.
Bum the dog.
Look, it's got half a paw missing.
B-U-M, Bum the dog. So you've heard of Greyfriars Bobby, but this is the lesser known cousin of Greyfriars Bobby, who sits here. What's the story of Bum?
There's a couple of different stories. If you look at his front paw on his right paw there, it's missing. See, he's got half a paw missing. And one of the stories goes that he rescued Bum was a homeless dog, a stray dog, in San Diego in California. And one of the stories goes that he rescued a puppy from getting run over by a train, but he got his front paw cut off in the process, and he was adopted by the locals and really well looked after and so on. After Greyfriars Bobby was shown on the TV, Walt Disney made a movie out of Greyfriars Bobby, who was a similar dog who looked after a homeless dog who guarded his master's grave for 14 years. And so after Walt Disney made a movie, we ended up getting twinned with San Diego in California. So there's a statue of Greyfriars Bobby here in San Diego, and Bum the Dog is here in Edinburgh. Agatha Christie was married in this church.
No way.
Agatha Christie was married here. And also one of the famous characters who's buried here is Thomas de Quincey. Confessions of an English Opium Eater is buried here in this very graveyard. How cool is that, man?
Just taking the spire of St Cuthbert's there just because it's looking lovely on a lovely twilight hour.
Look how this is the most seized upon castle in Europe. It's been seized upon at least 23 times, right? The English had control of the castle in 1314. They'd held it since 1296, right? They stole our Stone of Destiny, which is the stone the kings and queens have to get sat upon to be coronated, and they stole the Scottish crown jewels.
No way.
We never got the crown jewels back, and it took us 700 years to get the Stone of Destiny back. But in 1314, Robert the Bruce defeated the English at Bannockburn, and he needed to take back the castle from the English. So he sent back 30 men to take back the castle, and it's believed they scaled up this wall here on the left-hand side there, and 30 men, because in their party was a young guy who used to live inside the castle, and he used to sneak out to see his girlfriend in the old town, and he knew a secret way in.
Oh, wow.
So 30 men sneaked up that rock under the cover of darkness and took back the castle from the English, and Robert the Bruce ordered the castle to be destroyed.
Views. You can tell that the castle's been built at different times, can't you, with the different kind of different brick
This view
styles.
here, actually, Charlie, this is the castle from the Wizard of Oz. See this bit here? The art director of Wizard of Oz used to live just round the corner.
Yeah.
And so when he filmed the Wizard of Oz, he based the castle where the Wicked Witch of the West is at the end with the flying monkeys. That's what that's based on.
No way.
So if you go back and watch the Wizard of Oz, this is the castle it's based upon.
So
And
cool.
the Emerald City is actually Edinburgh.
No way.
Because the art director was from Edinburgh. He used to live round the corner. He used to walk past this every day.
So we're heading into an area called Grassmarket now, which is a lovely area with lots of different places to sit outside, but it has a bit of a grim history. It might look very nice and European today, but it was famous for hangings.
Public executions.
Public executions.
Just over here, it's called King Stables Road. It's now all accommodation and all that. Obviously, the King used to have stables here. But just recently, up until the last 5 years ago, this was a famous club here. Right, so Edinburgh's a student city. 20% of the population is student, and we've got 6 universities, several further education colleges. But now there's hardly anywhere for the students to go. They're knocking down all the nightclubs and so on. In fact, this is the so-called best selfie spot by the council here.
Oh, we'll get a little selfie
But
here.
see these benches here?
Yeah.
This used to represent the city walls. So
Oh,
the walls
okay.
came down from the castle here.
Yeah.
So if you're on the other side there, on the right-hand side, you're outside Edinburgh, and it's unsafe because Edinburgh was a walled city for 250 years due to centuries of infighting with the English.
Here we go, another selfie spot. Look at that lovely castle in the background. However, Paul, you've got the lovely church there, which is now turned into a pizza restaurant and prosecco bar. Grassmarket is straight ahead of us. It's
Yeah,
worth
the sheep
checking
party
out.
essentially, yeah. You get a lot of the students come here, a lot of stag and hen parties, a lot of the tourists, a lot of rugby fans come here when the rugby internationals are on as well. There's a couple of Irish bars. There's a famous pub coming up called the White Hart Inn, and this is allegedly where Robert Burns, Scotland's national poet, spent his last night in Edinburgh in 1791, I think, or something like that. But yeah,
It's all buzzy and lovely up here.
plenty of
I
bars.
love the Grassmarket, nice and pedestrianised. Not too many buses around. You have the Last Drop, which is a pub coming up on the left, which allegedly was the last pub where people would have their last drink before being publicly hung in the square.
And by the way, the reason it's called the Grass Market is obviously there was a market here, and they used to sell animals, and they used to be kept in pens which were covered in grass, hence the Grass Market.
I
And
see.
there's also a corn exchange here where they did sell grain and seeds and so on as well.
And there
so
still is a market here on a Sunday, I think. They
it's
have
quite
a sort of
one,
small
like, but
farmers
yeah,
market comes out here.
there is stuff.
The Last Drop pub, there you go, is very famous and a bit of a pilgrimage. You can see their lovely logo is actually of a noose. How about that, with the O in the Last Drop being the noose. So that leads us to the final part of our tour, where we're going to finish right at the bottom of somewhere that some of you might recognise from Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling wrote a lot of her novels around in this area, and she was inspired very much by Edinburgh. Now, there is no better spot to get a photo in Edinburgh, in my opinion, than this. This is Victoria Street, or West Bow it is at the bottom here, but look how it goes around, diagonally you might say. And as we wander up here slowly to finish our tour, you'll see lots of different interesting little shops. There was actually a broom shop on this stretch, which gives people more connection to the Harry Potter novels and Harry Potter series. Now a lot of kind of Harry Potter novelty stores have come up, you know, and they can't call themselves Harry Potter stores, so the Boy Wizard and things like that, because otherwise Warner Brothers be around with a hefty fine. But you do have some really nice independent shops up here still, and just notice how the street curves around. I'll just give you a nice panoramic of it.
Joanne Nolan.
Oh yeah?
She still lives in Edinburgh.
She does, and her children go to Heriot's, I think, which is just beyond that way, which they say was the inspiration for Hogwarts. We will finish our tour now. I think this has been enough, but look at us here. This has been really, really lovely. We went from Leith, we went from Ocean Terminal on the 22, we went all the way through the New Town, through the Old Town, through Princes Street, and end here in Diagon Alley in the centre of Edinburgh. Thank you all for watching.
Take care everyone, thank you so much for joining us.
Bye bye, see you later.
See you later.